and we're doing it live. Hi, we're the Stidhams, and our goal is to help you get self-directed. It's the tax-free income that will shape your legacy. It's wealth, time, and the freedom you deserve. What you're about to learn will enable you to make confident and strategic moves. It means gaining complete control to invest in what you want when you want. We've helped thousands of people just like you. And if they can do it, you can too. So we hope you're ready, because it's about time that your money started working for you. And we're so excited that you chose us to show you how.
Starting right now.
It worked today. Hello. It's always a great start, right?
It's all about the small wins.
Yeah. Okay. Tonight is the night. I have been waiting for this particular segment, for this topic. I have been shouting it from the rooftops, from the mountaintops. Look at what he did. Look at what he figured out. Because I can't say we got. It's all credit. All goes to you. But the point is, we have figured out how to connect things in ways other people aren't using them. And I'm going to say this again, because just because other people aren't talking about how to use these particular tools in the way that we use them does not mean they can't be used this way. Just going to throw that back out there, because we're getting it in the comments all the time. Like, I don't think it can be used like that. Well, have you tried it? Because we're going to show you how to do it. And tonight, particularly, you're going to learn the exact strategy of how we got over 200 months ahead on our mortgage within less than 8 months. Sound too good to be true? Well, stick around and find out. And if you are on your wealth building journey, you're in the right place, because we have a wealth of information, a vault of information, hacks and tips and ways, strategies that aren't conventional, because we're outside the box. I say that all the time. I love that for us, but it's true.
Yeah, it's time to turn on the fire hose.
Yeah,
Fire hose of information.
and sometimes it is a fire hose. So we appreciate those who, of course, stick around with us and tune in. And then we also love everyone who sticks around for the replay. So at any point in time, if you have questions, I'm just going to throw it out now, and I'll probably just kind of lace it through. Please ask your questions, because this is the best time while we're live to get your questions answered in full. Okay. So we have people tuning in. We got some comments coming in. Whoop, whoop.
Just a check. Is LinkedIn on?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure, because I'm not
LinkedIn
seeing it.
is.
Look at Angel. So Angel is actually a classmate. That's what's up.
Oh, that's nice.
Class of 91.
Yeah. Welcome everyone. Okay, so Donnell, I've put together some slides. I threw them to you like an hour ago. I know you love that when I do that. And now you've had just a moment to put it through. But the good news is I can do that because these strategies aren't new. So we're just gonna. I think we should just jump in.
Okay.
Do you want to kind of disclaimers?
Yeah. Well, just to set it a little bit. So we're talking velocity banking. This is velocity banking. But the thought process is we're just going to take a different approach of what type of debt tool we use to be able to accomplish our goals. And as I spoke last week, the goal is number one. Like, what is the point of doing this? And in full transparency, I think we started out as debt elimination. Like, our goal started out as debt elimination, but the more we became educated, it became more about what is the real goal and how can we leverage what it is we're doing to be able to achieve the true goal, which is WTF, wealth, time, freedom, being in a position to generate wealth while having full control of our time. And so that we can put us in a position so that we can create that true freedom, and whatever that freedom is, just the ability to do what we want to do when we want to do it, how we want to do it. So that was the ultimate goal. So it was like, what are these vehicles that we can use to get there? So this, as much as we're going to talk about, mortgages and banking and all of those fun things, this is really just velocity banking at its core.
Yeah. And there's levels to this. That's what we were kind of talking about before, is infinite banking essentially is very similar to velocity banking. And this is just one of those pieces that helps you level up. If you think velocity banking is powerful, wait till you see this. Okay, I'm excited. So I'm ready to get started. Well,
Yeah, let's
for
do
you
it.
to get started.
Let's jump in.
Okay, sounds good. Oh, how do you want to start? Do you want just the half
Half
is
is fine.
fine?
Yeah, half is
Okay,
fine.
all right. Half calf, is that what we're doing here? All right, hold on a second. All right, there you go.
Got stingers. Look
Yep.
at that. Stingers working.
Stingers.
All right. So, yeah, and as she mentioned, I don't know that this is a subject that I've ever brought up, but I know you can find my wife in clubhouse rooms all the time talking about how we got 200 months ahead on our mortgage in a short period of time.
Facts.
So the thought process is to just break down how we got there, how we did it, what were the steps that were taken. And so we kind of created an example. And this example is kind of based on what we talked about in our previous live, and that was a $300,000 home. You've got a $300,000 home, and you place a mortgage on that home. What would happen if we just took a different approach? And so just kind of jump in. So to kind of set the stage for this example, because this was around about the age I was when we jumped into this whole process. Got a 40-year old, makes about $6,000 a month. Expenses are about 3,000. Got about $50,000 sitting in a checking account or a savings account rather. And the monthly cash flow, obviously 6,000 minus 3,000, cash flow being $3,000. So with cash flow of $3,000, what could you do? What kind of bills could you take care of, right? And the thought process is now, since we are in a much more positive cash flow position, the objective is to buy a home, knowing that $50,000 is sitting there because if I don't know any better, I don't know, maybe this is a good opportunity to take that 50,000 and dump it into this home. What do you do with that $50,000 to make it work for you even more? And again, not fully understanding what you should or shouldn't do with these dollars, it kind of determines what kind of actions you should take. So it's fairly simple. We're talking about a $300,000 home, a 4% interest rate on that $300,000 mortgage. And obviously, this is a 30-year term mortgage. We went over last week why 30 versus 15. Won't get into any of that. Moral of the story is this is a 30-year fixed mortgage at 4% for a $300,000 home. And again, that $50,000 is sitting in savings. And the main purpose for it sitting there was to potentially use it as a down payment. But we want to make a comparison today. And that comparison is between what would it look like if instead of doing a mortgage, we got a first position HELOC. And that first position HELOC at, let's call it 7.03%. So in essence, what I'm saying is, what would it look like to have, instead of a mortgage at 4%, a first position HELOC at 7.03%? And the reason for the 7.03 is that was the percentage that the calculator gave me. So I just went with it. But the bottom line is, yes, we're talking about a higher interest rate on a different type of mortgage product, a HELOC, home equity line of credit, compared to a 4% interest rate on a $300,000 mortgage. So just kind of at a glance as to what that would look like for that 30-year mortgage. Again, looks like my mic is playing games with me. For a 30-year mortgage, we're talking 300,000. For that first position HELOC, it's the same 300,000. We're not doing anything different. Interest rate being 4%, 7.03% on the first position HELOC. Now the mortgage is a 30-year mortgage, obviously, but HELOCs come in different sizes, different schedules. This one specifically, we're calling it as a 10-year term. What that means is the draw period for that HELOC, meaning the amount of time you can get money into it and get money out of it, is 10 years. And so basically what I'm saying there is it's a 10-year draw, is that draw period. And I don't show a monthly payment on the first position HELOC, mainly because we're using this as a debt tool. Because we're using it as a debt tool, regardless of what 7.3% on 300,000 would be, because I'm using this as a debt tool, because I'm doing velocity banking, I don't really care what that interest rate is, but I do know it. 7.03% on a $300,000 home equity line of credit equates to about,
Oh, I
get
think
this
you're
right. I think it's,
frozen.
am I?
Yeah.
Perfect timing. Perfect timing. All right, give me a minute.
Yeah. Dang it. He's frozen. Okay, we had some connection issues with some people getting into the chat. So just to make sure everybody's in there, he'll be back in just a second. But I have a question: Is as who watching has heard of a first position HELOC? Because I think this word HELOC is used a lot, and it's used as if it's talking about one thing, as if it's one thing. And I'm just curious to know how many of our viewers are people watching are even familiar with this term or unfamiliar with this particular product, because it is a product, right, through the bank. We also are getting a lot of questions about it because we've mentioned it before. And there's, again, I have to just put this part out here that when you go to your bank, after you see this and you're like, I'm getting one, that's it, I'm getting one. And you go and you ask them, how do I get one? This is the moment when you're going to learn this is why you have to understand why it works, because they do not profit like they do a traditional mortgage. And so you have to educate yourself, because oftentimes they'll even tell you that they don't offer them. That's not true. So knowing who you're banking with is important, and that's just, there's my disclaimer. So, all
You
righty.
ready? Can you hear me?
Yep, you're back.
All right.
Yep, and all right, we got people in here giving me some feedback. That's good. Love it. Okay, cool. So
All
ready to
right.
go
Jump
back?
back in. Yep.
All right. I can't see very good, so I have to find it. Hold on.
Take your time because my camera. So. All right. So again, what we're looking at from a first position HELOC perspective is we're talking about a 7.03% interest on a first position HELOC on a $300,000 line of credit. And that equates to about, I want to say it's about $750 a month, meaning, and the way you calculate it is pretty simple. 7.03 times 300,000 ends up being a number. I think it's like somewhere around $21,000. You should divide that 21,000 by 12, and that gives you how much it would actually cost you in a month. And actually, you divide that by 30 days or 31 days or whatever that average might be. You can tell the daily average interest that you would be accruing on this home equity line of credit. So again, we're talking about two products: home equity line of credit with the 7.03% interest rate versus a 30-year mortgage at 4%. Which is better? And if there's any mortgage brokers, any bankers on this live, I have people in the comments screaming up and down, screaming at me, going, there's no way a 7.03% interest rate is better than 4. And I can show you better than I can tell you.
Well,
But I do want to set the stage a little bit, though.
okay.
Let's see. Oh, yeah. I do want to set the stage a little bit with a few rules. And you know what? I guess I don't have to get into that yet. We can start here. And just to confirm some of the feedback that we've been getting related to when you compare one interest rate compared to another. A simple interest home equity line of credit allows you some flexibility that a mortgage just does not. It's just a flat out fact. And as I was talking through this last week, I was getting some consistent comments. And this one is, again, I'm not here to put one of our viewers on blast, but I just want to make sure that this is clear, because I think this is a consistent question that we get. And the question that I asked him was, hey, are you telling me that a mortgage interest rate at whatever the percentage is somehow better than a line of credit interest rate that might be higher? And the specific response was, and I'll share it with you, why would anyone be stupid enough to pay 10% interest when they could pay 5% on a mortgage? Like, he did not mince any words. Why would anyone be stupid enough to pay a higher interest rate on a line of credit when they could pay a lower interest rate on a mortgage? Like, the math just doesn't math.
Yeah.
And if you dig into the back and forth between he and I, he's also a math major. And so what that speaks to is it's not, again, when you walk into a bank, the bank is going to press upon you the products that they sell. They are not going to try to place you in a position where your money can be best used effectively. So we have been conditioned. There's so much advertisement and programming out there around what it is we should be doing, when the truth is, if you just do the math, this looks different. And so if you just do the math around this simple comparison of this 30-year mortgage at 4% and the first position at 7.3, it looks different. And again, I did mention there's a 10-year draw, and we'll dig into what that means. But yes, I understand these interest rates are different. And we also have the mortgage payment for that 30-year mortgage, which is $1,432.
Well, and I just, if it's okay, I want to jump in for
Please do.
2 seconds and just
Please do.
say the reason for this low interest rate is because there are some people who currently still have this type of interest rate, this level, I guess they've won,
Absolutely.
right? Years ago. You can't get that now. I don't know if even know if that exists at this point, but some people do currently still have this. And so it would only be fair if we gave the best case scenario, knowing that the differences in what you'll see will only be more drastic with higher interest rates. So this is us giving all the mathematicians out there. And by the way, we appreciate the criticism and we appreciate the feedback, because it took us, like, not everybody sees this at first. I didn't. It took me a long time. Now I freaking hate math. So there's the difference there. You know what I mean? I'm just like not really waking up in the morning like, you know what sounds good? Math. Never have I felt that way. But there are some people who this is their jam, and the way that they do, right, exactly. Like, do not have me helping the kids with math. That was him. So for me, it takes a minute to wrap my head around. But we are seeing that there are people who are very tenured. They are very familiar with numbers, and yet still sometimes, because we're programmed to believe these other things, we're programmed.
Absolutely programming.
Yeah, it's just programming that we will believe that the banks would say, like, the 4% traditional mortgage would be better than. So all I wanted to say was we are not picking on people who pick
No,
on us.
absolutely not.
We appreciate having these discussions because this is the way that we're going to truly be able to help people and help each other. This is really like each one teach one. So the second that people like him will understand this concept, it'll be like wildfire, because he'll really be able to explain and help other people, right? So do you guys see the value in that? And I think everyone watching too, once you see this, you'll be out there talking about like, holy cow, you can't believe what I just saw, and share it out.
And I say it all the time. Once you see this, you can't unsee it.
Right.
Once you see how simple this is, it's kind of difficult to unsee it and even think that the other way was even a normal, or is even a normal thing to do. It becomes abnormal. So again, looking at this picture on a 30-year mortgage, we're talking about a $300,000 mortgage. $1,432 is the monthly payment. We did kind of throw in here PMI, because there are some assumptions that maybe you're paying PMI, maybe you're not, which equates to in total about a $1,682 payment. And ultimately, if you were to run this 30-year mortgage out to term, you'd end up paying in total, including PMI, somewhere around $545,000. So for a $300,000 home, you end up paying about $545,000. That's $245,000 that you gave to someone.
That's nice.
Who'd you give it to?
Right.
Right? It's $245,000 that you didn't get to use. It's $245,000 that in essence probably bought the bank a couple of homes. And in addition, how many times did the bank reloan or loan out that $245,000 to others?
Yeah, that
right?
part right there. Yeah.
And so I do want to set some little ground rules here. So let's just call it rules and assumptions. Because I have to make some assumptions as it relates to what we're about to walk through. The first one being, this is velocity banking. Meaning, from a velocity banking perspective, if you do not understand velocity banking, don't just haphazardly think you can step into a first position home equity line of credit and be okay. And here's what I mean. You have to be able to understand how to use a debt tool. because a first position home equity line of credit comes with some, I'll say its own set of rules, its own set of guidelines. So you have to understand velocity banking. And in addition to that, there has to be positive cash flow. If there's not positive cash flow, this is not an option. Because again, you can get yourself in trouble if we're talking about a line of credit around the amount of $300,000. So there has to be positive cash flow. And then the other is, I'm not going to show him making any more income. Meaning the assumption in this example is he makes $6,000. He's got $3,000 in expenses, which in turn leaves cash flow of about $3,000. So I'm not going to, in this example, I'm not going to show any more, any bonuses, any additional dollar amounts going into savings. I'm going to show a certain amount in savings, a certain amount of cash flow, and I'm going to run this example out as a result. And then we're also going to talk about payoff, meaning paying off a 30-year mortgage versus leveraging a HELOC.
Yeah.
So there are two different discussions here. Again, most people when they reach out to me and they want to eliminate debt or pay off their home, it is about paying off your home. So there's a difference between paying off your home and then leveraging your home. I want to make sure it's clear that what I am talking about is leveraging your home to generate wealth versus paying off your mortgage. And then the last one is I'm going to ignore PMI.
From this point forward.
From this point forward, I'm ignoring it. And here's what allows me to do that. Let's just say this home is worth $400,000. I am purchasing this home for $300,000. Because the home is worth more than because the difference between what the home is worth and what the mortgage is owed on it, there's a difference of more than that 20% that would require PMI. So I'm just flat out not even talking about, not even thinking about MPI. So I'm going to ignore PMI, just so we're clear.
Did you see that I put the money in jail? Because,
yes.
okay.
Yes.
I like it when the details matter. Just throwing that out there.
That's why we're together.
Yeah.
So before I can talk about a first position HELOC though, we have to first understand what is the difference between a first position HELOC and a second position HELOC. So I want to set just a foundation here of understanding around what it is I'm talking about. And there's just some fundamental differences between the two. And the first one kind of looks like this though. Again, if we're talking about a home, let's say this home is worth $400K. And again, the mortgage on that home is $300K. So I'm spending all of my life paying off this mortgage, these 30 years paying off this mortgage. But the difference between what the home is worth and what the mortgage is that I have on it, that's your equity, right? So if I have a $300,000 mortgage and the home is worth $400,000, what's in first position? From the bank's perspective, the most important piece of this equation is this mortgage, and this mortgage is in first position. If you wanted a home equity line of credit, usually you would go to a bank and they would say, okay, you have a mortgage of $300,000. We will now offer you a home equity line of credit, but that home equity line of credit is based off the amount of equity that you have. And so you'll get a certain percentage of that equity, whatever the terms are associated with that home equity line of credit. And so that difference between the two, that home equity line of credit is considered the second position. So if the mortgage is in first position, then any home equity line of credit you get for the difference between what the house is worth and what you owe on it, the second position would be any HELOC that you receive. And so usually when people hear me say the word HELOC, they think I'm talking second position. But the truth is I am not. And in addition, just kind of walking through some of those differences, the first position HELOC literally replaces the mortgage, meaning the mortgage is no longer in place, and we're going to replace that mortgage with the first position HELOC. And then usually the interest rates on a first position HELOC are somewhat lower. And it's mainly because the HELOC will then be in first position. The banks have an incentive to make sure you are maintaining that payment. The banks have an incentive to make sure you follow through. So they usually offer first position HELOCs at a lower rate. Another thing to note is first position HELOCs. When you refinance into a first position HELOC, traditionally that also is a cheaper process. Meaning when you get a mortgage, there's closing costs involved. When you get a mortgage, there's thousands of dollars that are also expended to be able to achieve your mortgage. Well, with the first position HELOC, it's a pretty clean process. And I think ours specifically may have cost under $1,000 to do a first position HELOC, convert from a mortgage to a first position HELOC. But when that mortgage is converted, and again, using this as an example, give me just a minute. A moment. See if I can do it here. So using this as an example, if we would use that exact same visual, and we replace the mortgage with a home equity line of credit. So what that means is now the mortgage is no longer there, and the cost of that mortgage is gone because we paid it off using the first position HELOC. And now we've ultimately just changed positions. The HELOC is now the most important tool as associated with the bank. And that is what you're paying your traditional, I'll call it monthly payment on, is now you have to pay off this balance of $300K. So all we're doing is replacing this mortgage with a first position HELOC. Other than that, the loan to value ratios, the requirements for being able to get approved for a home equity line of credit compared to a second position, a first position versus second position, those requirements are ultimately the same. There's no one, meaning whatever your LTV is, whatever those requirements around LTV, credit score, credit worthiness, those are ultimately the same, meaning whether we're talking a HELOC, first position, second position, or a mortgage, the requirements for you to be able to be approved for them are ultimately the same. There may be a credit score difference, meaning one may require a lower or one may accept a higher credit score, but ultimately the same rules apply when it comes to becoming approved. So again, this first position HELOC, what am I talking about? So we're talking about a $300,000 first position HELOC. We're not putting anything down, no down payment. The interest rate is about 7.3%. There's a 10-year draw. That 10-year draw just means I have 10 years that I can get money into and out of this product. And again, these numbers are the same. $6,000 in income, $3,000 in expenses, which means the cash flow is $3,000. Now, over that 10-year period, if we were to continue to make this $3,000 of cash flow and let that room live on that home equity line of credit, during that 10-year period, we would have accumulated a total of about $84,000.
And paid off the house.
Absolutely not. So in this $84,000 does not necessarily pay off the house unless we do some other things. But just simply allowing that $3,000 to live on the home does not pay off the home. That's the amount of interest that would be paid in that 84-month period, or in that 10-year period. Now, if we're focused on paying off the home, which I'm not, but if we were focused on paying off the home, that interest, the total interest paid would be right around $157K. So we would pay about $150,000 in interest if we paid off the home. And I think the amount of time it would take to pay off the home would be about 12.75 years.
With these numbers right here.
Absolutely. And this is, again, no extra dollars, just using the $3,000 a month as cash flow on it. It would take about 12.75 years to pay it off. But again, my objective is to not. So kind of setting the stage or taking the initial actions as it relates to a first position home equity line of credit. So let me set the stage a little bit. You have your first position home equity line of credit in place. It's in place for $300,000. How are you able to use a home equity line of credit compared to a mortgage? Well, a mortgage is a closed-end product. So that $1,432 a month mortgage payment, you make that $1,400 and 32 dollars mortgage payment for the next 30 years. The home is paid off in 30 years. A home equity line of credit is open-ended, meaning if you were to make that same $1,432 or whatever that interest payment amount is over time, if you only paid the interest into the HELOC, you would never pay it off. But because this is an open-ended product, and again, you have to understand velocity banking to understand what I'm saying here. If this is an open-ended product, meaning it can be used as a debt tool, that means all of my income can go into this home equity line of credit. What's this gentleman's income? $6,000 a month. What's his expenses? $3,000 a month. So if all of his income goes into the first position home equity line of credit, we pay expenses from the first position home equity line of credit, leaves $3,000 in cash flow. But there's something else that's special here that we did. And I'll try to make it a little bit bigger so it can easily be seen. But what we did was we have $50,000 sitting in savings. Because this is an open-ended product, because it can this dollar amount can be used for whatever you want, you can get money into it and get out of it. What is the point? What is the purpose of having a savings account? This is your savings account, or it can be used as your savings account. So rather than put $50,000 onto the home equity line of credit, we get the home equity line of credit for $300,000. And then the second step is to take all of our savings and dump it into this first position home equity line of credit. So we take our savings, put it in, we take our income from month one, put it in. That's a total of $56,000. When we do that, the balance on that $300,000 first position home equity line of credit drops down to about $250,000. And then when you put your income also onto that first position home equity line of credit, it knocks that balance down even further. But we do have to pay bills. And so when we pay bills out of the first month, it jumps back up by $3,000. But I want to pause here at month one. What happened at month one? Well, in month one, if you would have paid just your $1,432 onto the mortgage in month one, the difference in the $300,000 that you originally owed and the balance left would be about $299,568. So you paid your first monthly payment. The new balance on your mortgage is $299, whatever that number is, $458. But on the first position HELOC, after we've dumped $56,000 and paid bills from that home equity line of credit, how much? What's the balance left? How much is left on the home equity line of credit? How much balance due is left on that first position home equity line of credit? Well, how about $248,482? Meaning, when we took this action and dumped $50,000 from savings into the home equity line of credit, plus our income, and paid bills, it immediately dropped our first position HELOC down to $248,482. Well, what's the difference between these two numbers if we were looking at them from an amortized schedule perspective? Well, in month one, we would have paid off the first month inside the mortgage. But if you look at that same 248 compared to where we would end up on the amortization schedule, and
You want to go full screen? Well, just want to inject this little nugget here.
Go for it.
Because I think some people might have went 50,000. Where'd you get the 50,000? In the very beginning, for those who might just be joining us, the profile was, this is how 40 years old, they had the down payment for the house.
50 grand.
And 50 grand for down payment for the house. And instead of using it for the house, we used it in this is how we're using it to leverage it even more. Because if not, and they put it in the house, the reason why I put the money in the jail is because it's all locked up inside of the house. They can't use it, which is why a lot of people don't want to use all their savings, even if it is to get better terms for down payment for a house, because they can't access it past that point, and they need to have money for emergencies or whatever else. So they have a separate savings account, and this is just how pretty normal and pretty typical of a practice for people. So I just wanted to throw that in there. You want to go full?
Yeah, that's fine.
Full vibe.
Absolutely, let's do it.
Okay.
Now, and just so I'm clear, just so we're clear, though, there's a lot of moving parts here, right? Had $50,000 in savings, we wiped out savings. We wiped out savings and dumped that into the first position HELOC.
That's right.
And in doing so, that may make some people nervous. But the reason it should not, as it relates to a first position HELOC, is because this is an open-ended product.
Right.
Meaning, just because I put $50,000 into that home equity line of credit, it does not mean I don't have immediate access to that 50,000 if I need it. And the impact of that 50,000, because it's a line of credit, the balance due, or the interest rate, that 7.03% interest rate, is based off whatever the balance is at the time. So in putting 50,000 into the first position HELOC, it immediately knocked that balance down. And in knocking that balance down, that means I'm also paying less in interest at month one. And
Right.
so at month one, yep. Did you go full screen yet?
No, we have a quick question. I think it's
Oh,
a
let's do
great
it.
question. I think it's a
Yeah.
great time for this question. If you had cash to pay off debt, would you still do velocity banking? So if they had debt and the $50,000 in savings, would you still suggest that they do what you're about to show them?
So that's a great question. And the more and more you watch us, I think you will almost, you'll hear me speaking in your head, right? Because my first question is going to be, what's your goal? If the goal is to pay off a home, or if a goal is to eliminate debt, then you can make that decision based off what the goal is. For us, the goal is about putting ourselves in a position to where we can generate some wealth, meaning leverage the tools we have to be able to create more momentum, keep money moving. So in that case, would I use up my cash to pay a bill, or would I use up my cash to put it in a position to make more money? I'm going to put my money in a position to make more money.
Yeah, I was just
Now,
going to say you could be debt free and still broke.
absolutely. Now, I'm not saying I've got 22, 36% in credit card interest, and this balance is out of control. And instead of doing that, I'm going to take my cash over here and put it in a compound interest producing vehicle. I'm not, and you have to be logical on this as well. Meaning, in some cases, it does make sense to take that cash, pay off that debt, get yourself in a positive cash flow position, and then once you're in that positive cash flow position, aggressively go attack generating wealth. So it really, I'd say everyone is, there's no, I'll call it cookie cutter answer to that question. It really, but it starts with, what is your goal? And based off your goal, we adjust that decision to fit the goal. In this gentleman's case, or in this example, because we've done velocity banking, we've gotten into a pretty successful positive cash flow position. It makes sense to throw all of our efforts into this HELOC because of what we're able to do with that equity when we do. If for whatever reason you're in a negative cash flow position, would it make sense to do something like this? You cannot, because being in a negative cash flow position will hurt you. So I think there's many different answers to that question, but it starts with, what's your goal? Fair?
Yeah, yep. And Benita's on LinkedIn. Her mind is blown. She says, I needed the charts and graphs to understand this. Thanks, Donnell.
So the only reason she stated that is because she's on me all the time about how do we represent this visually. And I'm a math guy. I jump right into the numbers, and whatever you want to do, you do. So she wanted to just reinforce the fact that it's not just her that needs these things represented visually. Everyone else does too. Point made.
Yes, if you're a visual learner, where are my people at? Let me know, because I do think that this is important, being able to see the difference. For me, when I see numbers, sometimes I just literally check out. If my brain goes numb, and I just go, yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
let's show
sure.
the vibe board.
Yep. All right, here we go.
So what I wanted to do was just simply prove these numbers that I'm showing you. So what you're looking at is if you go to calculator.net, click on mortgage calculator. This isn't anything that I created. It's right there at your fingertips. And all I did was punch these numbers in. So if we're looking at the same $300,000 mortgage over a 30-year term at a 4% interest rate, what does this look like? Well, again, let me say this again. I am ignoring PMI. I'm intentionally ignoring this calculator is not including PMI. So with no PMI, what we're talking about is over a 30-year period, over 360 months, you would have paid about $515,000. You would have paid about $215,000 in total in interest. So using in a mortgage. And again, after month one of paying that 1432, at month one of paying that 1432, the new balance, the ending balance on your mortgage would be 299,568. The same number that I was showing on that slide. Well, if you have a first position HELOC and you dump all of your savings in it and you dump all of your income in it, and it knocks that balance on that HELOC down from 300,000 down to 248, where does that 248 lie on this amortization schedule? Again, this is end of year 4. How about 277? No, we were less than that. How about 252? No, we're way less than that. Okay, here we go. 248, it's somewhere between here and here. So in month one, we became 100 months ahead of where we would have traditionally been in a mortgage by simply taking our money and putting and just adjusting how we apply our cash to our asset. So instead of leaving that 50,000 sitting in savings, and we'll get into what happens when you do, and taking that 50,000 and dumping it into the debt tool, it immediately put us 100 months ahead on where we would traditionally be inside of a mortgage.
It's powerful.
Huge.
Well, for most people, they would have even put it on the house.
Oh, we'll
but
get there.
For sure, left it some of it in savings.
Yeah, we'll get there. I promise we'll get there. So again, my point is this. Starting in month one, it put us in a much more positive position as it relates to just simply equity. This difference between here and here is 100% accessible. Meaning, if you needed a portion of that $50,000 to go pay a bill, fix a car, take care of an emergency, it's 100% accessible. So this didn't handicap you. This didn't now all of a sudden prevent you from being able to use your savings. But had you put that $50,000 into your mortgage, could you access it? Had you put that $50,000 into your mortgage and you had an emergency, did you handicap yourself?
Yes.
And what this visual is also looking at is, what does it look like over 24 months? Well, over a 24-month period, and again, I am using the same amortization schedule that I just kind of showed you, the 101 months at month one. Using the same amortization schedule would allow us to, over the next 24 months, put you in a position to where you would be 133 months ahead of where you would have traditionally been in a mortgage, meaning that mortgage would look more like 289, 219 compared to 211, 209 is where you would end up after 24 months. How much interest would you have paid on the home equity line of credit? Well, and how much interest would you have paid at that same point in time related to a mortgage? The difference between what you would have paid at the same period of time, you save about $102,000. Meaning, had we had a mortgage and it took us 157 months to pay down that mortgage, you would have given the bank $135,000 in interest at that same point in time. So by doing this function, by treating your home as a tool, by getting a first position home equity line of credit in place of the mortgage, yes, you still spent money on interest, but you did not spend $135,000, which means ultimately you saved $102,000 by just simply taking a different approach.
It's crazy, right? Right, guys?
And as I mentioned, I know my cash people are probably freaking out. So let's say you didn't put $50,000 onto the home equity line of credit. You didn't do it. Matter of fact, you don't even have a home equity line of credit. You got your mortgage, you got the 30-year mortgage, and that $50,000, again, you decided not to put a dime down. And you put that $50,000 into
high yield savings account.
That a high yield savings account, bringing you 3%, I think is what this is saying. Yeah, about 3.045%. Well, that same $50,000 over that same 24-month period would have made you about $3,000. So inside that high yield savings account over that 24-month period, you would have made $3,000, but you would have missed out on an additional $99,000 over that same period.
It's crazy.
And I'm sorry, that's not 24 months, is it?
Yes.
No. It's yeah,
Yeah.
it is. I'm sorry, it is the same 24-month period. So over the same 24-month period where you would have saved 133, you've been 133 months ahead on your mortgage, saving 102,000. Had you not done that, yes, that $50,000 would have made you about 3 grand, and you would have missed out on 102 minus 3 grand. So you would have missed out on about $99,000 in interest saved, which is better.
That's, I need a sound effect for that. Find one.
And I did not leave out my cash people, because here's an argument that you can make. Okay, Donnell, I see what you did. You took that $30,000 HELOC and you said no down payment. But when you put $50,000 onto that $300,000 HELOC, it's no different than putting $50,000 down payment onto the HELOC. You're right. So let's say you do the exact same thing. So before you close on that $300,000 mortgage, you bring $50,000 to the closing table and you decide that you want to dump 50 grand into the mortgage.
Yep.
What would that look like?
And if you're asking a lender what to do, this is exactly what they tell you to do.
Right. So, okay, cool. Instead of no down payment, which would produce about a $1,432 monthly payment, you take that $50,000, dump it into your mortgage, and at the same 4% over 30 years, you made $200 a month on your payment. You've just reduced your payment down from $1,432 down to $1,200. You made $200. Like, that's awesome. But on day 2, you need to fix your car. On day 2, there's some emergency. On day 2, you need some access to that $50,000 that you just dumped into that mortgage. How do you get it? You can't.
Because it's in jail.
Because it's a closed-end product.
That's right.
Now, you have a principal and interest payment on your mortgage. You can make a principal-only payment of $50,000 into your mortgage. So even though you didn't put a $50,000 down payment onto your mortgage, let's say you take that $50,000 and you make a principal-only payment on top of your mortgage payment. Again, I don't know why you do that, but let's say you did. And does that change your monthly payment on your loan? It doesn't, unless you recast your loan to now change the monthly, the principal and interest payment. Just because you put $50,000, just because it took your amortization schedule down, whatever that $50,000 would be, that does not change your monthly payment. So you're still paying $1,432. So if you don't put that $50,000 in up front, you're still paying $14,000 and you can't access your $50,000.
And I want to talk about this because there's a very popular video out there right now that's talking about how much money you can save by putting extra money on your mortgage and how much in interest you're saving by putting extra money on your mortgage. However, you're locking yourself out of your leverage, and that money does not create its own money inside of a mortgage. It just sits there and it's like a parking lot, right? For those dollars that you put in there. I also want to bring up this point. While I understand the value and I can see where you can save interest by making more payments, paying biweekly, because that's
Right.
also
2
another
payments a month,
strategy.
right? That's one of those tools that they use to save interest on your mortgage. Awesome.
Right. There's a few strategies out there in terms of paying off a home faster. There's also like the 15-year mortgage, right? And I'm sure there's going to be people in the comments like, this is all cap. Just do a 15-year and call it a day. And I think when you do this type of comparison, it's a no-brainer at this point. When you see that what you're not able to do with leverage, I think that's the part is we just haven't even considered that it's an option or it's a possibility to leverage your money and purchase a home. The one thing I just wanted to mention, and I don't know, maybe I can go grab it and throw it in later, but it's the if you pay off your house early, sometimes there's a penalty with a traditional mortgage. And what happens if you keep dumping money in? You can't get that money out, first and foremost. And on top of that, you're penalized. Why do these things exist? So, to your point, you always ask,
Who benefits?
who benefits? Right. So, that's why it's really important that you do understand how these strategies work, because on top of there being penalties, on top of there being a ton of programming for us to believe that these are the things that we're supposed to do, this feels like winning, right? 30-year mortgage, get the mortgage down to where it's affordable. This feels like winning. And this is why you have learning about this now makes such a difference, because when you walk in to talk to your lender, when you walk in to talk to your bank to understand, do they offer something that it will benefit you? Knowing what you're looking for is also important, because the person you're talking to probably doesn't even know how it works. And that's just facts.
Yeah, and you said a mouthful there. Like, look, um, again, when you walk into a bank, they are programmed to offer you a certain amount of products. So even if the bank you walk in offers a first position home equity line of credit, it is not in their list of products to offer. So they're going to do everything in their power to try to convince you that a 4% mortgage is better than a 7% home equity line of credit. They're going to do everything in their power to convince you of that. And conventional math says they're right, with the exception of, again, what's the goal? Even if the goal is to pay off the home, you got 30 years to pay it off, compared to, I think if you kind of play this out, it ends up being about 12.75 years with no lump sum. With the lump sum, I think it ends up being about 9.6. So you can still pay the home off early if you wanted to, if that's the goal. But if it's not, meaning, without having to put extra money in, without having to make more money, without making extra payments, this is just simple math, allowing your cash flow to work for you and having full accessibility to all of the money, all of the equity that you're creating throughout this period. And here's one piece that I can also see coming as well. Well, you could always refinance your mortgage, because Donnell, you keep saying you can't access that $50,000. But if I refinance my mortgage, I can get a second position HELOC for the difference between what I now owe versus what the house is worth. And I can use that money to do great and wonderful things. That is very true. On top of your mortgage payment, you can also add a second position home equity line of credit payment, and
Or,
use that home equity line of credit payment to use that home equity line of credit to chunk down the mortgage. Like, there's a velocity banking action here as well that mathematically makes sense, because for some of us, like right now, what I'm showing you is a 4% mortgage and a 7% HELOC. This math makes sense. But it's also possible, with the current interest rates that we're in, the math may not make sense. I'm not going to go through the example today, but you could also use a second position HELOC to chunk down a mortgage in record time as well. And we'll go over that. But my point to you is this: the bank who offers these products are not trained to be able to, for this to be the first offer that they present to you. And here's why: they don't make as much money. So what do they have to benefit? They don't make as much money on a home equity line of credit as they would a mortgage.
okay, one last thing.
Yes.
Can everyone see where, if you have assets out there that are not performing, if you have money sitting in a high yield savings account or a CD or something like that, where maybe it's uninterrupted steady growth and the risk is reduced, can you see where you might want to dump it in something like this, because it would benefit you far greater than sitting in collecting dust? Really, the amount of money that you're earning, as you can see, the comparison that we just showed for the high yield savings account, is like dust compared to the impact that it could be having inside of a vehicle like this. And so this is where, in month one, how quickly you can get to 100 months ahead on your mortgage. But if
Right.
you start to really assess your assets, and then you start to go, well, hold on a second, let me do the math here. What would it look like if that $10,000 that's sitting in X account was put in here. What is the difference there? And just looking at the amortization schedule, which you can find online for free, you can put your terms in there, your mortgage rate, your where you are in that process too. Look at your schedule and then go and find out, hey, if I were to chunk this away, what would this look like? There's also a HELOC calculator out there that we used, and that's all of that. All of those tools are free, and we'll put them in the description of this of the live stream and in for everyone watching the replay or not, so that you have access to these and you can use them too. So I just want to throw that out there.
Yep. And so just to kind of beat this example to death, let's say you take that $50,000 and you put it on your mortgage. What does that look like? So, okay, taking that $300,000 down to 250 and you reduce your monthly payment, you still end up paying 179,000 in interest. Meaning on a $300,000 home, you still end up paying about 479 in total over that 30-year period, which means you're still giving the bank 179,000. Compared to you being able to leverage, and two things, you being able to leverage the money inside of your first position home equity line of credit, and you're paying less in interest.
Yeah, that's crazy. We have a comment. Wow. I'm still trying to wrap my mind around this beautiful concept. I need to do some research on velocity banking. Well, you're in the right place.
Yeah, and it's really about velocity banking is really about debt elimination, but I focus not just on debt elimination. My question is always, what do you do with it? When you're eliminating that debt, when you're reducing that debt, do you take action after the debt is gone, or do you take action while you're eliminating the debt? Now, if you're not in a position to do so, I get it. You eliminate the debt, create the cash flow, take the cash flow, get the money working for you. But if you are in a position where you have cash flow available and your goal is to eliminate debt, the key is to get money working for you, because the faster you get that money working for you, the faster you can put yourself in a much more positive cash flow position over time to where your money's making money for you. I like turning my money into employees. Have your money making its own money, and then use that money to retire or take whatever action you want.
She says, I don't have any debt outside of my mortgage. Does this still make sense? That's a
Absolutely,
great
because what that
question.
says is you have cash flow. What that says is you have cash sitting, and the best thing you can do with your cash is put it in motion, because the more your cash is in motion, the more your money can generate more friends, generate more employees, generate more money for you. Compound interest, your money making money, and the money that your money makes more money. Now, these are different times. You might have a mortgage sitting at 3%. You run out here and try to get a first position HELOC. I don't know that you're going to find one under 7. So you really have to do the math on what does or doesn't make sense. I go back to my original question. It's not about a first position home equity line of credit. It's about the goal.
Right.
What's the goal? If the goal is to generate income, if the goal is to generate wealth, if the goal is to retire early, then how can you leverage your home, which it sounds like today you may not be? How can you leverage your home to put yourself in a position to get to your goal? What does that look like? And in some cases, because of the way interest rates are wonky, maybe it might make sense to get a second position HELOC. Again, there's just many different actions and paths you can take. The moral of the story is, what's the goal?
Okay, Chris says, can you explain difference in a HELOC and home equity agreement?
Home equity agreement. I am unclear as to what a home equity agreement is, unless it's the contract around the home equity line of credit. Again, I'm not a mortgage guy, so I would say this is kind of stepping outside of my scope. So I'm very unclear as to what home equity agreement would be. Never heard of it, but I'm very open to learn. So if there's someone out there watching this now or watching this on the replay that can better explain what a home equity agreement would be, I'm open to listen. But I can tell you very much so what a home equity line of credit is. And it's a tool that you can use to be able to pay down debt and generate wealth.
Yep.
And again, that $50,000 that you put down on your mortgage and the amount of interest that you paid, regardless, this HELOC process still puts you 69 months ahead on your mortgage as to where you would be on your mortgage, and still saves you 38,000 in interest. Meaning, even though you put $50,000 as a down payment onto your home, get the interest, to get the principal and interest payment down to 1,100, and you're able to pay off your house faster. Like, all of that is awesome. But a first position home equity line of credit still saves you more. First position home equity line of credit still pays the home out faster. Like, it's very hard to beat this.
Yeah, and I forgot to put the money in the jail on that one, but it's still in the jail.
It's all good. But as I mentioned, my goal is not to pay the home off. Like, what we really have to be honest about here is, what is the goal? Is it to pay off, or is it to leverage? And from my perspective, it's about leverage. Meaning, is the objective to pay this home off? Because if we use velocity banking and use this as a first position HELOC, we would pay this home off in about 116 months. If the goal was to pay the home off. But my goal is not to pay the home off. 116 months is about 9.6 years, if I'm not mistaken. So versus a 30-year payoff. So is it pay the home off in 30 years or pay the home off in 9.6 years? I would say 9.6 years is awesome. But again, that is not my goal. So let's do some quick math here. The cash flow involved in this process is, the gentleman makes $6,000. He has $3,000 in bills, so his cash flow is $3,000 a month. $3,000 a month equates to $36,000 every year that he's paying down the mortgage. I'm sorry, paying down the HELOC, right? And we have a $50,000, I'll call it, injection of cash onto the debt tool, which dropped the balance down even further. So yep. 50,000 in month one plus 36,000 over that year, that's $86,000 of room on that HELOC. We can let it sit there. And again, we can do this process, pay, income goes in, pay bills, income goes in, pay bills. And we can play this out for however long it would take to pay this home off. And it ends up being about 9.6 years. But I don't think that way. I've got $86,000 of room at year one. What should I do? Well, if you know anything about me, my objective is to put money to work. I am going to take a portion of that leverage and put it to work. I want my money making more money. So at month one, when I put in 50,000 on top of that 300,000, that brings the balance down to 250. And then I put my income in, okay, it brings it down another 6,000. But then I pay bills, and okay, that brings it up another 3,000. So in essence, I've got well over, I had right around $53,000 of room. So what I'm going to do is take $20,000, take that $20,000 and dump it into a secure compound interest account. I'm going to take $20,000 of that equity and put it to work. And if I did that on an annual basis, meaning at this point, if I was to take $20,000 and just put it to work, and then pay bills, income goes in, pay bills, income goes in, pay bills, income goes in, and then at the end of year one, at the start of year two, which is at the end of year one, I'm going to take another 20,000. Dump it into my secure compound interest vehicle. But what happens when I do that? When I do that, the balance goes up by 20 grand. So, okay, I'm going to spend the next year doing velocity banking, paying down that first position HELOC. Again, 36,000 is going to go in, and we're going to pay a certain amount of interest, which is why I'm not putting more than 20,000. I chose 20,000 for a reason. If there's 36,000 of room and I am going to pay 7% in interest, I'm going to take 20,000. I don't want to put myself in a position where I could get myself in trouble. So I'm taking this $20,000 on an annual basis, which means the balance is going to go up at the start of the year. I'm going to pay it down. Then the balance is going to go up at the start of the next year, and I'm going to pay it down. Notice I have zero plans on paying this home off. So if I take this $20,000 and I dump that $20,000 into a secure compound interest account, premium finance strategy, also known as MPI. Well, $20,000 a year, 20,000 divided by 12 is 1667. So let's slide over to the calculator. So what would happen if I take 1667, $20,000 a year, starting at month one? meaning I'm taking it out of that 50,000 that I put in, right? So I took it
Yep.
out of savings in essence, but I
Yep.
take that $20,000 and get it started. What does it look like when I dump that $20,000 a year inside of MPI? So I need to slide over to the calculator if you don't mind.
Yep. You're
So
there.
thank you. So age 40, here, I guess I'll do it this way. Age 40, and no one said anything about a retirement age, but you know me, I want to retire as quickly as possible. So retiring before the traditional retirement age is always my goal. Retire early. So 40,000, retire at age 59, or stop contributing at age 59, or allow this to compound at age 59, however you want to call it. And I want to put in $20,000 a year. So I'm starting at eight. The key is, when do I start? I'm not starting when I pay the house off. I'm not starting when I get 15 years into this. I'm starting on day one, putting in $20,000 a year. What does that look like? Well, by age 59, we're talking 109,000 tax free for the rest of my life. And as I mentioned, I didn't pay the house off. So if at the end of this, 40 to 59 was that? Is that 19 years? So at the end of those 19 years, I didn't pay the home off. Let's just assume I hovered right around. So again, just doing simple math. If I allow my income to stay on and I dump 20,000 into this product, 9 times out of 10, that balance is going to be somewhere around the 280 mark, which means I never got that home equity line of credit below 280. So at the end of 19 years, I still owe $280,000 on this home, never paid it off. But what did that $20,000 do for me during that 19-year period? Let's say you did the same thing inside of a mortgage. What did that $50,000 over that 19-year period do for you inside that mortgage? How about nothing? But it sure did give the bank a whole lot of equity. I'm sorry, a whole lot of interest to be able to use and lend back to you.
Yep.
But in placing that $20,000 into a vehicle like this on an annual basis, it put us in a position to where now we're talking about $109,000 tax free. I've got a projected cash value, a nest egg, liquid cash value of $952,000. If I wanted to pay off that $248,000 mortgage, can I use that?
Yep.
So there's nothing preventing me from still paying off the home if that's the goal. But look at how I've used this asset as a tool. I've used this asset to build wealth. I've used this asset to generate income. And in addition, this is a life insurance product. So when I dump that $20,000 into this product on day one, if something were to happen to me on day one, my beneficiaries would receive $600,000. So a lot of people buy what's called, I think it's called mortgage insurance. And I think it's also a mortgage life insurance. I can't remember what the actual name of it is, but meaning, God forbid, if something were to happen to me, at least my house is paid off. That's a marketing ploy.
No doubt.
Why would you buy insurance to pay off your home? Why not just buy insurance that is actually working for you and still pay off your home if you needed to? So it's all about the tool. It's all about the structure. It's all about using a secure compound interest account that's structured properly, that adds leverage so that you can actually produce income. And then, God forbid, if by age, 59, something were to happen to you, you're passing off a death benefit. Remember, death benefit is two numbers. It's the life insurance plus the cash value and any of its growth. So you're passing on a death benefit of what, $3.3 million? Can you get any of that out of your mortgage? Oh, I'm sorry. How about that $50,000 sitting in that high yield savings account? Like it just does not compare. Let's see. Did I cover all of that? Covered all of that. Oh, and what if at month one, instead of starting in a secure compound interest account, you said, you know what, Donnell, I feel more comfortable with a Roth IRA. Because Warren Buffett said, hey, if I invest in these index funds and I use a Roth IRA, I can still get to that same goal.
Or your Uncle Charlie said it.
So if you were to put this exact same dollar amount in, if you were to put this exact same dollar amount into a Roth IRA, $20,000 a year. Well, first off, you can't. The limit Based off age, this gentleman's 40 years old. Based off age, the max you can put into a Roth IRA is what, 6,500 bucks? So you would have to open multiple, or you would have to do something different with the remaining because you can't put a full 20,000 in. But let's just say you can. Let's say you put that same 380,000, oh, sorry. You put that same 380,000 that you were going to put into a secure compound interest account into a Roth IRA. And let's say you were making somewhere around 9%, which I guarantee you're not. And that management fee being somewhere around 1%. What would that Roth IRA look like around the same time? Well, notice you would actually have more money in your Roth IRA than you would in a secure compound interest account. 978 compared to 952. Again, if you've been following this channel, I care very little about net worth. Talk to me about how much income I would have. Just because I've got $1 million, if the max I can get out of that $1 million in income is 40 grand, then I don't care about the $1 million. What I care about is the income. So inside of a secure compound interest account, that income looks like 109,000. But inside of a Roth IRA, we're talking 40 grand, which is better.
Yeah, well, definitely not trying to live off 40 grand. And that's what age did you have? 59?
Yep, 40 to age 59. And because you're about to make my last point. In addition, at age 59, you couldn't touch the Roth IRA anyway. So well, even if magically you could wave your magic wand and dump 20 grand a year into your Roth IRA, which you would have more money inside of a Roth IRA than a secure compound interest account at age 59. Yeah, it only equates to 59 or 39 grand a year, but you couldn't even take that because you have to be 59 and a half before you can touch it.
Well, my point is that's 19 years from now. Who's living off of $40,000 a year in 19 years from now with inflation, cost of living, healthcare, all of the other things that we cannot control? The last thing that we need to do is be in a position where we do not have the income to survive.
Yep. And remember the rules. I don't show him making any more money, right? So let's say you get a bonus. Let's say you get a tax return. Imagine what else you could be dumping into this first position HELOC to make this process go even faster. So I'm not including any of those types of things, right? I am ignoring PMI. I'm only ignoring PMI because in truth, once you have enough equity, it goes away anyway. So there's some things that, again, I'm setting to the side, but the truth is there's not another vehicle you can put in front of me that could outperform a product like this. And we kind of dug into the reason why a few weeks ago, about a week ago, and that is this 380,000 that you've contributed, you're making on average somewhere around 7% on that. This 1.8 million is making the same 7%, but you're actually leveraging this from the life insurance company. So there's a cost to borrow. So if it costs you around 4% to borrow and you're making 7, that means there's 3% arbitrage. So you're making 3% on this number plus 4% on this number is what allows you to have this cash value of almost $1 million. And again, I'm showing this until age 59. You give this just a few more years, what does this look like at 65? We're talking $200,000 a year in tax-free income. And again, you still haven't paid off your home.
And that's for life.
That's for life. You still haven't paid off your home, and we kept that cost of your home, meaning you probably still owe somewhere around $250 to $280. If the main goal was to pay off your home, if that was the main objective, you've got $1.8 million to simply go pay off that home. Matter of fact, you've got $1.8 million that can buy many homes. But again, it depends on the goal. I think the last thing I wanted to cover on the slides, if you want to slide over, was just kind of basically recap kind of what we've discussed and kind of just talk through a few questions.
Yep, we have some questions waiting.
So let's jump into that. Let's jump into the questions.
Oh, well, go ahead with what you were. Okay.
It's up to my producer, whatever she wants to do.
Yeah. Okay, we do have some questions. So I'm just going to go from the top down. And Angel, she says, just a follow up, that she only has her mortgage as debt. She just bought a home and the interest rate is 7.1. And that's what I figured was pretty common right now. Uh, does that still make sense for her since her
I'm a
interest?
math guy, right? So 7.1% mortgage. Does it make sense to get a, let's call a first position HELOC around eight? I don't know. I honestly don't know what's being offered at the moment. But would it mathematically make sense to do something like that? I can't say without doing the math, because maybe it might make more sense to get a second position home equity line of credit, meaning you got a 7.1% mortgage and that's a certain mortgage payment, whatever that mortgage payment is. Assuming there's equity in your home, there would have to be equity in your home to be able to get a second position home equity line of credit, but assuming there's a certain amount of equity, then would it make sense to get a, let's call it a $50,000 second position HELOC and use that 50,000 to chunk away at that mortgage, so you're gaining and getting more and more equity, and then what you can do is recast as you're paying down that mortgage, you can recast that mortgage, which then also reduces your monthly payment, which also then increases your cash flow, which then allows you to be able to put that cash flow to work for you. But I start with, what's the goal? If the goal is about income at a later date, then if, again, I'm assuming you said your only bills was this mortgage. I'm assuming you have cash flow. What are you doing with your cash flow currently? Who cares about this 30-year mortgage? What are you doing with your cash flow currently to put yourself in a position so that you can produce income?
Yeah, because a dollar saved, people like to use this term, a dollar saved is a dollar earned. Those dollars aren't compounding. They don't multiply themselves. They don't go out and get friends and come back. They just sit there. So
A dollar
it
saved into your savings is a dollar earned in your savings. Great words. A dollar saved in your savings is probably losing you 25 cents a year. So I'm more of the mind of a dollar should consistently be moving. You know me, I like to get multiple uses out of that same dollar. So what can you do with that dollar to get it moving? What can you do with that dollar to put it in a position so that it can create friends? So they can
right.
create employees. Like, I don't know, whatever analogy you want to use, it's your money making money, and the money that your money is making, it's making you more money. It's about compound interest. Throwing that money in a vehicle that can produce that compound interest, even if it has to start with a high yield savings account.
Yep.
Start somewhere. What other
Okay.
questions you got?
Yep. So we have Adiana. Is that how you say her name? Adina,
Adina?
Adiana. Well, now it's fancy. So there it is. We currently have a
Ooh,
2.75% rate. Would you still suggest getting a HELOC?
math. It is, do you know how difficult it would be to give up a 2.75%
I mean,
mortgage?
it's
Like,
quite a
are you
flex.
kidding me?
Just gonna throw it out there. Well done on the flex because
So
America
if
is
you have
jealous.
equity, and again, it starts with, what is your goal? If you have equity, maybe it makes more sense to get a second position HELOC and use that second position HELOC, because as you recast that 2.75% mortgage, that's a huge improvement on your monthly mortgage payment, which means you now have more cash value, or cash flow available to dump into to some vehicle to produce income. Starts with the goal. I respect the fact that you cannot give up a 2.75% mortgage. I get it. But if you're asking me, if you're just flat out asking me, is a 2.75% mortgage better than a 7% first position HELOC? I think my math would tell you no.
Yeah, I
Only
was just gonna
because,
say, oh, because I was gonna push back if you said yes.
only because how you can use and access your equity.
Right.
Now, if you aren't in a positive cash flow position, stay where you are. If you aren't, whether you do velocity banking or not, this is about cash flow. If you are not in a secure positive cash flow position, you have to be very careful when you're talking about using a product like this, because it's the cash flow that allows things to move quickly.
Yeah. But for some people who their goal is to get, for their house to buy what we call a baby house, right? To buy a second property, to buy an investment property. Where are you going to get the leverage? Where are you going to get the access to the capital? Like this is what slows people down because they're working harder, not smarter, and they're having to go out and recreate the wheel every single time to recreate opportunities. And now you can just write the check. That's the part about all of this, is that this is, you don't have to tell them what you're spending it on. You don't have to be a certain age in order to leverage it and access it. Some of these things are just things that people just didn't even know existed. And that's the power of what we're doing, is there's courses on this, and they're selling these at a high ticket. Now there are white glove type services.
That's where I
And
was headed.
yeah, and I do want to throw that out there. So if you want to talk about that before we move on to the
Yep.
next
Because I
question.
think it's a good place to talk about it. I'm not a mortgage broker. I'm not a bank. I'm not a credit union. I understand how to use first position home equity lines of credit to be able to do some amazing things. But how would you even go about getting one? What we'll do is put some resources onto our selfdirected.info site so that you can access them. But the moral of the story is, how did I do? Let me walk you through how we did it. I
We
had to get
had to do it, by
I
the
had to
way.
get educated in this process, right? It all started with velocity banking. Once you realize a debt tool is a debt tool is a debt tool, then how do you, I'll call it, go get, or where do you go get a first position home equity line of credit? I tried on my own. And what I learned on my own is what you will run into as well. What I learned on my own is there's a lot of forces fighting against you. And so I ended up finding a group called Replace Your Mortgage. RAM. I think it's called Replace Your University now. And we'll put these resources, like I said, onto the site so you can access them. But the moral of the story is I ended up with white glove service on how to do this because I ended up interviewing banks. I was educated on how to interview banks. I was educated on what questions to ask. What are the right questions to ask the people who pick up the phone and say, hey, you don't want a HELOC, you want a mortgage. The position it put me in is I became an educator of the people that I was talking to at the banks. But in addition, under that white glove service, there was a list of banks provided to me and contact names of who at those banks are the ones that you would want to talk to. So this process became very clean and very simple for me because I focus on generating the income. I am not a banker. So the last thing I need to do is focus on whether or not this bank is doing me right or not. So I did pay for that white glove service, meaning it is a service that you pay for to be able to be directed into the right place to be able to get a home equity line of credit. Now, like I mentioned, we'll put those resources and how to get to some of those resources on our site. But the truth is, you don't need any of that. If you
That's
want a
right.
first position home equity line of credit, it is as simple as going to your bank to be able to do so. But if you don't want to stumble and bump your head the way that I did initially, there are absolutely resources and communities out there that can support you. And who you get this information from matters. Where you get these resources from matters. It's about being self directed, it's about taking control, and I focus on structure. So where you get that structure from matters, and the resources that we provide you are people that I have signed off on because I use them as to how to get the right resources to be able to make the right decision.
Yeah. But you can do this on your own. And the whole
Absolutely.
concept of becoming self directed is so that you can feel empowered to make confident, educated decisions, and that you feel like you've got this. You can do this. Everybody can do this. Now, there's a difference when you're out there trying to find what is the next piece? There's a piece missing here. What can I do with this opportunity? And you have to be the one to get out there and grab that tool and find that it even exists in the first place. That we did have to do that. Many of you watching, this is that moment for you, right? Where you're going, holy cow, nobody I know has done anything like this, so I wouldn't have any kind of support. What do I do? Well, stay here. Stay here with us. Jump on these live streams with us. Ask the questions. If you're watching right now and you're going, what the heck? I have so many questions. Ask them, especially right now, so that you can get a detailed answer. We try to do our best in the comments to address those answers, to address the questions, but it is really hard to do it in words, right? And in
I hate
text.
long comments, just so we're clear, but I found myself putting a lot of long comments into the comments.
No, you
So
guys
yes,
can
I
leave.
agree.
You guys can leave long comments.
No, I hate writing
Oh,
long
I
comments.
was like, no,
I don't
they can
mind
leave the
reading
long
long
comments.
comments. I hate writing. But sometimes when people ask a question, in order to get the detail out, it has to be long. And so I apologize for any of my lengthy comments. No, I'm not absolutely not saying that don't leave lengthy comments. I'm not saying that at all. I just hate writing them. So
Yeah. Okay. Next question. Barely Local says, now something happened in the comments. I just want to note because hats off to Celeste here. Barely Local jumped in and said, how should I use 10K in savings, pay the car loan, credit card, IRS, or mortgage, or make them grow? What to do first? Hold on. Before you answer, Celeste was like, look, I've been here for a minute. I think Donnell would say, what is your goal?
man, and but that's that because I'm telling you, the path you go down is different depending on the goal. I am
Dang.
okay if your goal is to pay off your home. Like that. That's a fair. Like there's nothing wrong with that. But just know who I am. I'm a retirement planner. I I'm focused on your future. I think paying off your home is kind of is short sighted. And so, depending on the goal, I think depends on what that act because there may be simultaneous actions.
Yeah.
Meaning, you got 10 grand. Okay, maybe it's you know what I'm going to start a secure compound interest account so I can start building wealth. But in addition, I have to get in a much more positive cash flow position, so I need to address some debt. Okay, which one would be the easiest to address? Maybe it's the credit card because it's a higher interest rate, and if I can knock that balance down, I can create more cash flow faster. The car loan isn't going to change. The mortgage isn't going to change. It's the interest on those other tools like credit cards and lines of credit, and that may make more sense to address first.
Right.
But it all starts with what's your goal.
And using the velocity banking worksheets that we just set up. We need you guys to test this stuff out and give us feedback. By the way, we haven't gotten any feedback yet. And I'm like, that might not be a good sign.
Because it's
Just
perfect.
no, definitely probably not. It's probably because it was a holiday weekend and over this last week, people were probably just busy, you know?
No
But I
doubt.
just,
No
I
doubt.
also wanted to say, no, that's not the button. This. Give us some love. If you're enjoying this live stream, if this is for you, if you feel like, yes, I'm in the right place, give us a thumbs up and leave a comment. Come back, share it with somebody. Come back, rewatch a part. And here's a hack. If you're here, then you know what I do is I take all of the commentary, all of the stuff all the stuff and fluff, and I condense most of our topics down. So and I post them later so that you know, you can kind of get it all condensed down. So I do that as well. Okay, moving on.
Can we pull up Lolo? Pull up Lolo for me, because I know you have an order, but I just happened to see it, and this is very important,
Okay.
very important.
All right.
Because
Oh,
why would a bank shut down a HELOC, right? Because I've had many people come to me with a similar type ask or question or response, and I go back to position because position matters. Right now, let's say you've got a mortgage and you're looking to take advantage of that equity and you get a HELOC. What's in first position? What's in first position is that mortgage. And if the bank is assessing your, I'll call it credit worthiness and your function with this HELOC throughout the time of you having it. If it looks like the balance is being, you're running higher balances than normal and you're not adequately using that HELOC, they will call it due. They will shut it off. They will shut it down. Why? Because they are more concerned about the mortgage. What's in first position is that mortgage. What is most concerning to that bank is making sure that mortgage is paid off. Anything you got secondary to that doesn't really matter to them. So they absolutely will call it due. But let's flip this a little bit. Now, in place of that mortgage is that first position home equity line of credit. What's most important to the bank? What's most important to that bank is that first position home equity line of credit. Why? Because they know if they don't get that, if you're not paying that bill, they don't make money. So they need you. They need to make sure this environment is conducive to make sure that you can do everything you can to make sure you handle that first position product. The first position product takes priority. The first position product is the most important. So if you have a first position HELOC in place of your mortgage, the likelihood of a bank shutting it down is very, very low. I can't provide guarantees. I can't tell you that it will not happen. I can show you the data that says it's highly unlikely, but I can't give you the guarantee that says it won't happen. Why? Because the first position HELOC is the number one item for the bank. Most people who have HELOCs shut down or called due or the draw period reduced or the balance reduced or the HELOC converted to a loan. I've seen that happen as well. I have yet to see that occur in first position. All of those stories that I have seen, that I have been privy to, that I have kind of talked through with clients have been HELOCs in the second position. So who you work with matters. The credit union or the bank that you work with matter. But I think you bring up a very, very good point. And I think that is a consistent thing that I'm hearing that, hey, HELOCs are bad because banks will call them due or banks will shut them down. I have yet to see that in first position. I think what is being referenced there is the second position version. Why? Because what's most important to the bank is that mortgage, because that's how they make their bread and butter. That's how they make their money. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yep. Okay. We have, I want to go back up so that we don't
Yeah, I
skip
apologize. It
skip
just happened
anybody.
to see it, so I just wanted to address it. I apologize.
No, it's such a good question too. So I'm glad that you did address that because we get a lot of comments about the pushback about things that you say. And again, just because people aren't using them in this way does not mean they cannot be used in this way and that they're not some benefits. Sometimes people just use things that are more familiar because they're more comfortable with using things that are more familiar. And if you go to the bank and the banker's like, I don't even know what you're talking about,
No,
you
it's
don't have a
worse than
lot of
that.
confidence moving forward either.
It's worse than that. You walk in the door and the banker is telling you you don't want this. This
Right, right,
is
right.
bad. The subject matter expert in the place that you went to for guidance is telling you you do not want this product. That is like that is difficult. That is
Yeah.
emotionally difficult to say, no, banker, you don't know what you're talking about. Like that's hard. Like I get it. I get it.
Yeah, and if you want to know why they do things like this, watch the Wells Fargo documentary and the Retirement Gamble. Both of those are completely free documentaries and kind of get an understanding of the lack of regulation on some of these industries too, and how things that we've been programmed to trust these people and the promises that we were given and how things changed along the way. I say it all the time. The traditional retirement plans were designed by people who thought jello and meat were supposed to go together. It's not okay. They also were designed by people who had that $40,000 a year retiring on was that's good, right? The 4% rule, all of those things, the fabric of these systems meant that people could siphon off of your funds, siphon off of your contributions, and that you'd still be okay. So you wouldn't really notice because at least the system is there versus nothing being there at all. And that's just kind of where it is. Okay, I want to move on to Willie
Yep.
because he's been waiting a long time.
So Willie G, I did make the mistake of putting 60,000 as a down payment. Now here's the thing, because I don't know if it's the compassion place that I'm in, but I want to be clear about something because I know I speak pretty passionately on doing things like this. First position HELOC, secure compound interest accounts, and all of that. But here's what I want to make sure I'm not doing. Willie, you did exactly what I think you were supposed to do based off the information that you've been provided, right?
That we've all been provided. So you didn't make a
Right.
mistake.
I
Yeah,
agree. I don't think that's a mistake now. You know different now.
that's
And you
right.
understand that the people that told you to put that $60,000 down had something to benefit. I don't think a mistake was made. I think we've been conditioned to believe a certain way. And so, right, that $60,000 down payment should not have been done. But I don't think you did something wrong. People who have these life insurance products that serve the life insurance company but don't serve them, I don't think they did anything wrong. It was, I went to a life insurance company, bought life insurance, and if something happens to me, there's a death benefit payout. You got exactly what you've asked for. You just didn't know to ask for a product that's going to produce income. That
Right.
mortgage that you bought, that interest rate that you have, that money that you put down, you did exactly what you were supposed to do. You did exactly what we've all been taught to do. It's that we didn't, if you, when you know better, you do better, right? So I just don't. Again, my issue is the word mistake. I don't think it was
Yeah.
a mistake made. I think it is more of a right. There's $60,000 of equity there that you can't leverage unless you put yourself in a position so you can leverage it. Now, you can refi, but that's an additional payment. Like there's these different things here, but you also can convert it to a first position home equity line of credit, because if you put $60,000 down, that means there's $60,000 of equity plus whatever your home has appreciated, and so there's room. And because there's room, there may still be a way that mathematically makes sense for you to be able to access that $60,000 to be able to do something with it, meaning put that $60,000 to work.
That's right. But that's the point, though, is if you don't put it to work, paying off the house faster isn't really helping you. And so, what we hope is, especially for anybody tuning in, that you go back and watch what we did with the money that you're saving. It's not just in saving interest, it's and on top of saving over $100,000 in interest, is what we showed. Then you are also compounding your money. You are putting those dollars that you have saved to work. And mic drop at that point, because and in addition, if anything were to happen to you, you're not making another payment, more money being taken out of your cash flow every month to be able to pay for assurances like life insurance or whatnot. It's all in one package, and it's all in one system. It's one machine, and that is powerful. Super powerful. Okay, I appreciate that you commented, Willie, because I think there are other people who probably feel the same way that you do, and they just didn't comment. So one, thank you for everyone who's commenting, because we know who to thank for watching, right? And we see that we have quite a few people watching, but we don't know who to thank for watching. And so we appreciate everybody being here. Thank you, Willie, for commenting and for tuning in. Let's move on to the next comment. Adina says, that's what hubby said too. I suggested the second. Well, feedback. Well, now we can't go back. I don't remember what you
No, I
said.
remember it, but again, it's a math question because this is the 2.75% mortgage rate, if I'm not mistaken. So the question is, it's a to me, it's a math discussion. So whether you should or shouldn't, and let's say you do get a second position home equity line of credit, what are you going to do with it? Like understanding the strategy and how to put that second position HELOC in the right position to be able to produce what it is your true goal is. Just getting it like to rehab the kitchen or fix up the bathroom, I don't know that math makes sense. But if you're talking about using that second position HELOC to put yourself in an even better position financially to grow it, whatever the case may be, I think that absolutely does make sense. And like I said, I participate inside of Replace Your University, Replace Your Mortgage, and identifying the right tools to be able to do this. There's an example that I watched probably 3 months ago around how to use a second position HELOC, and I don't have an issue in kind of bringing that approach to this venue as well. On, hey, if I do have a second position HELOC, how can I still hit my goals and being able to do so? I'll be honest, I'm not 100% versed on how to do that yet, but I can easily get there. So I think that I want to. Well, I'm saying this for a reason. I want to make a note to also introduce that example into this live as well. So we'll do that as well. We'll show you what a second position HELOC can do for you as well.
Yeah, but the core of it all, the foundation that holds this whole structure and every strategy and bridges it together, is velocity banking. So if you understand those concepts and
That's
how
it.
flexible
That's it.
velocity banking can be, then you understand the power and the leverage in using these strategies too. Okay, has Cat Sophia says, my goal is getting rid of debt and stop paying so much interest initially. The goal will obviously change once that goal is
Amen.
met. And
Amen.
I think the this is how a lot of people think of it. It's this, then that. Like, if, and I always equate it to, when you finish your dinner, then you can have your dessert, right? We're programmed for this, then that, and one thing at a time, one step at a time. Where some of these, because there's levels to this and there's layers to this, putting yourself in the position to take the next step doesn't mean that once you're finished with the first step, now you have to go prepare just to be able to take the second step. If you're doing it all at the same time, then as soon as that foot lifts up, off the ground, right? You have the balance to take that next step because it's happening at the same time. It's not one foot, then the weight shifts, then the next foot picks up, right? And the leg moves it, and it's all happening at the same time, the shifting and the balancing of the weight. This is no different. And when you have your money in motion, it's the same thing in the way that it compounds uninterrupted because you can't go back. You cannot go back and go back 3 years, 5 years, 10 years and start using these strategies. Then you can start today. But know that when you are doing a this, then that type of strategy, you're not leveraging the time part, which is the biggest asset.
But you also have to start somewhere,
Yeah,
right? So
for sure.
even if that is the approach, and again, because you know, I do like Dave Ramsey from this perspective.
Oh,
There's
wait,
a lot of
hold on. I don't
there's a
think you've
lot
ever
of
said this
people
statement before.
there's a lot of people that need the discipline, meaning the baby steps that Dave Ramsey preaches allows you to build habit and gives you the discipline around how to address debt or not get yourself in a position where there is debt. My issue with the baby steps is no different than us as humans. Once we stopped crawling, we started walking. Once we stopped walking, we started running. Where do we graduate? At some point, when you have the discipline and you have the cash flow and you've put yourself in a much more positive cash flow position, then what? Get that money to work.
Yeah.
And if you follow the steps, it's pay off your home then, right? No, it's simultaneously, again, to your point, it's all in one motion. Simultaneously, doing all of this at the same time in some way, shape, or form. Maybe you can't put all of your money into the secure compound interest account, but it's all about paying yourself first. Before you pay any bill, pay yourself first.
Yep. Okay, so we've got some comments, some questions about the sheets. So I'm gonna all three of these I think are all about and figuring it out. So that's good. So real quick, we're just gonna head over to that's weird. Did you see what it's doing?
Doesn't like it.
Yeah, it's not I don't know. It's not gonna play, guys. I don't know. Maybe it's a thing. Something there was a bug or something. Anyway, for the velocity banking calculator, you can go here and you can download it there. So that's how you can have access. You just fill out a form and tell us where to send it. Then we send that to you and we send you also the link to the Facebook group where that's a great place for us to collaborate and ask questions, but it's also a really good place for meeting other people who are on a similar journey. So if you're feeling like you're alone and you would love to have other people to collaborate with and say, hey, I have this, like, so even some of the questions that we're answering right now, hey, I have this situation, what do you guys think? And for everyone to be working it out and learning together, even if you're getting it wrong, just the fact that you're even out there trying to assess the equation, that each one teach one, right? So we learn and we grow farther and faster when we grow together. And we believe that. That's weird. I'm gonna have to figure out what's going on with that because I made that really special. That that video to play for the worksheet. Okay, let's move on. Okay, Carlos. Hey Donnell, good evening, sir. Closing on my HELOC on Friday, plus adding some cashing out plus adding some cashing out 401k plan. Really need to speak to you.
Yep. I don't know if we already have time on the calendar, but do me a favor after this, text me, and we can just put some time on the calendar. I've got a few openings this week. At least I think I do. But anyway, just text me when we're done, and we can talk further.
Yep.
I'll take care of you.
And you can go to selfdirected.info. Just forget the live part. You can probably get to the calendar there too. I know you can, but if you that's where you go to get more information there too.
But specifically as it relates to Carlos, I do have specific slots for clients of mine. So people are already my calendar fills up so quickly with new people. I do hold specific spots, so that's why I say text me so that I can slide you in one of those spots that I already have open. So I'll take care of you.
Perfect.
Marnay. Is it Marnay? Marnay.
Yeah, we're going to go with it. If we're wrong, please correct us because we're not trying to be out here butchering people's names. My credit card with the of the limit tapped most limit tapped out. How can I pay down the credit card and use it while using Velocity Banking?
Yep. It starts with the steps, right? Goal, know your numbers. If you know your numbers, then you should be able to identify how much cash flow you have. And let's say that credit card is tapped out, assuming there's cash flow at play. Once you put all of your income onto that debt tool, that cash flow now lives on that debt tool. That credit card is no longer maxed out. Now, how much cash flow you have matters, and really being specific on how much cash flow you have, understanding what bills can and cannot be paid. Understanding what bills can and cannot be paid from the debt tool matters. But the fact that your card is maxed out, I think that's a consistent theme. It's really about how much cash flow you have available, because once you dump your income onto that tool, you now have room to be able to address other things.
I'm going to try it one more time. Look at us. We're on. I don't know, it was just a bug. Okay, so here's where you can get it. Here's what it is. And I think that this applies to her. That's why I wanted to try it one more time. Because you need a place where you can put all your numbers, where you can kind of see yourself financially. You can see where your money's going. You can see what's happening. And then, of course, here's the group. So just so that you have a place, here's where to go, selfdirected.info/live. We're also going to be taking callers soon. So that's going to be fun. We should probably start that on
That will be hilarious.
we should start that on Sunday. We go live twice a week, and Wednesdays and Sundays, just so everyone knows. And so we'll grab the workbook, so that we can get some feedback. Like, does it suck? Let me know, because we need to fix it if it's not working for people, or if it's kind of difficult. I also did some updates. So if you got it a week ago, you might want to go back in there and just see like the instructions page that I added, because there's some things, some questions we keep getting over and over again. You make a copy and then you keep your own copy, get to work, put your numbers in. Then if you want to have a free consultation with Donnell to go over those numbers, to talk about your cash flow, to talk about where some opportunities would be for you, then you can book on his calendar. That way he has some context too. So that's all I put out there. Make sure everyone has that. Cool.
Sounds good.
All right.
What
And
questions?
so let's go back and
Oh, it's all good.
Carlos got the long comment after you said that. That's funny.
It's all good.
Okay, Chris. Hey, Chris. I'm glad you're back. Okay. What kind of options are available if your credit score is not high enough for a HELOC? This is a great question.
Um, Not high enough for a HELOC. It's been a while. It's since I was kind of assessing, HELOCs and what those credit score requirements were. But I remember a range, meaning there are banks out there that if your credit score is less favorable, there are credit unions out there. There are banks out there that can help, and I think that's where when we add these resources into selfdirected.info for you to be able to kind of reach out to some people that can assist you to identify what banks might be available. That would be one. The other is, I think that's the velocity banking part, right? In order to improve your credit score, what are some actions you can take to get your credit score in a much more favorable position? I think that's where velocity banking comes into play. Being able to identify a debt tool, pay down some of those balances, you get multiple uses out of the same dollar, prove to the your creditors that you are in a much more credit worthy position to be able to improve your score, improve your debt to income ratio, improve your utilization so that you can qualify for some of those things. So I think that's where velocity banking comes into play to be able to improve improve that credit score to be able to put you in a better position.
Okay, what is the opening balance? And then she says, or did it say beginning balance?
What are we talking about?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember and go back. There's like a Opening balance or beginning balance? Oh, on the worksheet, I think is what she's talking about. So there's a beginning, like what is your total debt, and then as you update the worksheet with where you are, then it'll adjust some of those formulas that are in the cells. So the only thing you need to put in is what is your total amount, like what's your beginning balance of, or your debt balance. That's really what it is. Yep, she said the worksheet. Okay, cool. The only other thing that I know that you wanted to go over was that kind of the list of questions that people should ask if they're assessing their own situation, just to be able to understand. There's a lot of questions on, would this work for me? Is
Mhm.
this the best for me? And I know that 7%, let's just call it an 8% interest rate. 10, who cares what the interest rate is? If you're looking at this and within the first, if you assess your whole situation and you know that within the first couple of months or year, you could save yourself $100,000 or $200,000 in interest paid. Does it matter what the interest rate is? If the savings is still more, the savings is six figures. If the savings was $50,000 and now you see what you could do with $50,000 versus just giving it to the bank, does it make you feel any better to know that even though you might have a low payment per month, that that money is not making its own money? Even
And
though you may have a better profile, maybe it feels better to have cash flow and money, a balance in a bank account. What's going to happen in 10, 15, 20 years from now when you are not able to actively create your own income? Where's it going to come from? And if we don't start talking, having those hard conversations now, for some of these conversations need to happen even with our parents, right? Some of our parents aren't prepared, and it's a sad thing, but it is very possible to restructure the things that you currently have and make it possible. That's the most heartbreaking piece to this, I think, is to know that this is not impossible. This is not, if you, to Chris's point, if you have good credit, then you can qualify for this. Some of these things are, if you have good health, you can qualify. But there are other opportunities and other ways to be able to leverage some of these systems and connect them together. And some of them may have to be getting creative. Like, this is a family bank. So if my parents don't have a retirement plan, what assets do they have? How can we form kind of a unit together and build something that will start compounding? What are those opportunities? Because everybody can win. We can work together. And we used to have the village type of mentality, right? We used to have, it takes a village, and we used to have that kind of support. But now we're going to have to go back to that. It's just, there's just no other way. We see where inflation is going, we see where the economy is going, and we have to be prepared. That's the only way we're going to make it.
yeah, I agree. I mean, um, insurability matters, right? And your ability to insure others matters, and being able to leverage your household to be able to generate wealth is absolutely an option. Meaning, maybe you personally can't qualify for a secure compound interest account. Do you have insurable interest over others?
Yeah.
Meaning, are you in a household with multiple people that you can then own policies on them to be able to generate income and holistically um, you know, allow the boat to move faster, to for lack of a better term. But bottom line is, you're right. Um, and the other piece I want to mention though here is, it's different for everyone. This is not cookie cutter. Um, this is not a one size fits all. I think starting with the goals and identifying what that looks like, there are different vehicles that may be able to support. And again, I'm a self-directed IRA and 401k guy. There may be an opportunity here to also bring in your previous employer's retirement accounts and use them differently to be able to build income and put you in a different position. Meaning, I think in this example, we use a $50,000 in savings. What if you don't have $50,000 in savings? Are there other vehicles that you can leverage to be able to put yourself in a position and use those types of dollar amounts? So there's a lot here, and I think it's not cookie cutter. I just want to make sure this is clear. This is not cookie cutter. It is per individual. Was there a question that? Yeah, it went up and went down. I didn't see it.
No, it was just a mic drop moment. It's like if velocity banking is done right, 99.99% of the time, interest rate will not matter.
Yep. We talk about it all the time, especially when it relate, and specific to today, first position HELOC compared to a mortgage. Again, the comment that was made to me was, why would I not have a mortgage at 4% just to get a first position HELOC at something greater than that? And again, the math does not lie. It is because of the ability to be able to, one, reduce the amount of interest that you're paying, the ability to leverage the cash or the equity inside of your first position HELOC to be able to do the things that you want to do. Like there are many reasons why, and that's ir- irrelevant of the interest rate itself. It is this tool viable enough to be able to get me to my goal?
Yeah. And I think that's the great segue into this question. Do we pay off credit cards or loans first? I think the first comment that came in, and I think that it was kind of just more context. $40,000 available. What is it that we do? And I think, to your point, knowing what your goal is so that you understand where your leverage is. I think so many debt reduction is important. I'm not knocking that at all because it is absolutely important, and we need to know how to do that. Having a ton of debt and having that weight and that pressure is not good. But velocity banking and debt reduction is not a wealth strategy. It's not. It does not make money. It saves money, maybe, does not make you any money. And it will not help. There's not a single person that can retire debt just being debt free. They have to have some income generating vehicle or source. And so I think whatever allows you to start, whether it's the credit cards, I think interest rates and what the impact to that debt would matters greatly. But I think, in my opinion, it's how can you get your cash flow increased to the point where you can get money out of that system and into making its own money. Because then, and I don't know, maybe some people who recently tuned in didn't see the example that you gave them earlier about you put your money in this machine and now all of a sudden you've got another machine printing money that you can throw back into your velocity banking strategy and your debt reduction strategy. So it's different because every dollar you put in, another dollar pops out, $2 pop out, right? So you can use those dollars to start reducing your debt. And I think those types of strategies are essential to assess and to make sure that you're understanding where could I plug this machine into all of this. And so, like Christmas lights, right? Like, which one can I plug into the other one? But this is essentially, it's important, and it can become a circuit in that same way.
And to specifically address Lee's question, do we pay credit cards or loans first? Again, it starts with the goal, but once you've identified your goal, most of the time, which vehicle you pay off first depends on how much you're paying. So what's that interest rate? What's that monthly amount? And which one gives you the most bang for your buck from a from a increase in cash flow perspective? So I'm going to say it varies. What if a couple of the credit cards were 0% interest? I'm going to bypass. I'm going to allow the zero. I'm going to pay the minimum on the 0% balance and address that loan because that interest rate would bring me more cash flow faster. But if we're talking about maxed out credit cards with a high interest rate being charged, it may make more sense to start off with the credit card. So it really depends. There's not I'll call it a one size fits all response. It kind of depends on the details of the debt itself.
All right, you ready to go back to that questions, the last questions we
Yeah,
had
pull it up.
on the board? Okay,
Pull it up.
cool. All right, there you go.
So, and I think we've kind of addressed a lot of these already. What if the mortgage was paid off? Like, let's say whether it was done in 15 years or whether it was a 15-year mortgage or you put extra income onto your mortgage. Let's say your mortgage is paid off. Then what? What does that allow you to do? And, does it improve your income? Meaning, once you're living in that home and you no longer have that mortgage payment, your cash flow just went up that 1432 or whatever that mortgage payment would be. How else is that designed to benefit you? Meaning, I know I have a fair amount of older clients who believe their home is a part of their legacy.
Yeah,
meaning the
right.
goal is to be able to pass on their legacy to their kids. And one of the questions that I often ask to my older clients is, but do your kids even want the home?
Dang.
Right? Because if the thought process is this home is going to be here forever, so legacies can live in this home and use this home, but what if your kids don't want the home? What are they going to do? They're going to sell it. And so, wouldn't it be better to leverage the home now while you're in the home, and you're able to, I'll call it, um, build legacy, build tools for the people that you care about using the home, because it's going to be sold anyway. So who cares if the house is paid off if you're no longer here? So you put vehicles in place, put using, leverage the home to be able to build vehicles and allow those vehicles to then be that legacy. That secure compound interest account, that, whatever the growth or the wealth that's being generated out of a tool like that. How do you leverage the home to be able to, to address?
Well, that's what I was going to say is once once retirement income runs out or healthcare expenses, whatever the case is, once they've faced that reality, often what they have worked so hard to preserve, which is the concept of owning your own home and passing it off, they end up losing it because they have to leverage something. And the ways that are presented to them to be able to leverage that as an asset, they end up losing the home. There's nothing that protects them in that situation, and that is the saddest thing I've ever seen. So I would say, does it provide income for life? A reverse mortgage is not that answer. There's a lot of things that I think people could say this is the answer. Yes, income, it provides it, that's not the same thing as a secure compound interest account. They just don't compare in the same way.
There are some situations, again, it's not cookie cutter. There
Yeah,
are some
right.
situations where a reverse mortgage would absolutely make sense. But those are few and far between, meaning there has to be a significant amount of equity inside that home for that to make sense. But in essence, a reverse mortgage is just a first position home equity line of credit with more fees, meaning it's going to cost you more to do a reverse mortgage. So again, it's a math answer, not a flat, hey, just do this. It's what
Yeah.
does the math say? And mathematically, I could probably show where a reverse mortgage would be more of a detriment than a help. But there are those few situations where a reverse mortgage might make sense.
No,
It,
it doesn't have any death benefit. So I don't think it compares in the same
Well,
way.
it depends on, so again, it depends on what we're talking about, because I didn't say using it as a wealth generating tool, because it cannot be. But there
Well,
are some situations where taking that reverse mortgage and that equity, that total amount of equity in hand, and then dumping that in a vehicle that can do some special things for you, I can make that argument.
okay, I will say that everybody's profile is different. And what I do appreciate is that there are different tools and not everybody qualifies for everything. So knowing what is available to be able to structure. And I do appreciate that about you, that there are people who have been in some pretty rough situations and you just pull things together like a puzzle and say, yeah, no, this is what could work for you. Matter of fact, there was somebody who didn't have their retirement plan at all, was in late 60s, and it was like in 5 years you could retire with income for life if you do this A, B, and C for this next 5 years. This is what those opportunities looked like for you, and this is exactly what you'll have to do if you want to have this security for the rest of your life. So okay, we'll get back into it.
No, you're good. What was it? And how long would it take for your money to double? How long would it take for your money to double just one time? Meaning, is waiting to pay off this home impacting your compound cycles? And so once that home is paid off, what are you doing with that money to be able to allow that lump sum to then double? Meaning, how do you take advantage of the equity once the home is paid off? Do you sell the home? Do you refinance the home? Do you take out a second position home equity line of credit? Meaning, what are those actions that you take now that the home is being paid off? And based off the age that you are, once the home is paid off, how long would it take for your money to double just once? Meaning, you've lost compound cycles in the process. So, what can you put in place now? Pay yourself first. What can you put in place now to start generating that tax-free income now, so that when you are in a position where you've paid off whatever that asset is and you have a large lump sum available to you, it's just allow you putting it in a machine. It's now going to help that machine grow even faster. But you're not starting from ground zero, meaning you're not 50 plus years of age before you hit that first compound cycle. You hit it back in your mid to late 30s. And now at 50 plus years of age, when you've paid off that home, finally, you have more of a dollar amount that you can dump into that machine that's already been running. And then
Right.
that last one is, are the gains tax free? Meaning, let's say you do things the conventional way, you've paid off your home, and now you are realizing that you need to downsize. And so now you're going to sell that home. When you sell that home, what's the impact? There's a capital gains impact. Now, unless you follow the Burr method or any of those other strategies out there where you are taking the money from the sale of a home and buying more homes, again, which is not passive income, it's active. But unless you're following that approach, the sale of your home is going to cause a tax event, taxable event. What I am talking about is putting your money that you've already paid tax on in a position that's producing a tax-free event, meaning the income that I am walking you through as it relates to putting $20,000 a year inside of a secure compound interest account, that income that I identified at $109,000, that's tax-free income for life. Don't underestimate the power of producing tax-free income. Because if your vehicles are right now tax deferred, what you're doing is you're setting yourself up to end up paying taxes on a dollar amount or a tax rate that you have no idea what it might be. Meaning, it's an open checkbook to be able to be charged whatever that interest rate is at whatever that point in time might be. So we should all be looking to live in a Roth environment, meaning the goal should be to produce tax-free income. And that's it, dear.
And that's it. So we have, speaking of, we had one more comment about somebody who's reading a book. I think it's a popular book in this community too.
Mm-hmm.
Becoming Your Own Banker.
Yeah, Nelson
Probably,
Nash.
probably quite a few people watching who've either read this book, listened to this book on audiobook. I think, I think any time that you are taking control is that's a good day. Any step forward where you are less dependent on somebody else to be able to make decisions. Not that you shouldn't leverage other people's skill sets, not that you shouldn't leverage other people's time. It's do you make a confident decision or are you dependent on people to help you make those decisions? And I think that we're we're done with that. That's not what we're doing anymore. And this is where we're building a community now to say we are not only are we going to do our best to bring our gifts best gifts forward to be able to share them with others, but we're also looking for yours too, your feedback. How is this making sense to you? What questions do you have? What was unclear? What did you feel when you were hearing some of this information? Because our relationship with money is also something that we had to unpack like a year ago, was going all the way back. We took a trip, we took a class about this all the way back to when we had first heard or seen money in our lives we could remember anyway. And just remembering all the little things that have the notable things, even music, songs we've listened to, idioms and sayings that were pretty common, and how they impacted and shaped our relationship with money. It's pretty powerful when we think about that. Even just disassembling some of those things that have programmed us are empowering and they're freeing so that we can make different decisions and so that we can kind of first battle some of that internal struggle that we face every single day in feeling like we have the permission to take control. Sometimes it's just as simple as that. And if you needed the permission, here it is. All for you. Okay, so on that note, though, about a book, because I think that this is important, we have 2 free books available to you. You can go get right now. They're
So,
just digital books.
well, let's connect that dot a little bit. So, becoming your own banker, by Nelson Nash. It's about the infinite banking concept. Infinite banking is absolutely a strategy that we use. We've high level talked through it today because a lot of what we're using, velocity banking, And then when you involve cash value life insurance product, you're introducing infinite banking. So all of this stuff speaks. Velocity banking, infinite banking, first position HELOCs, self-directed IRAs, self-directed 401ks, MPI, secure compound interest accounts. These all link, these all talk. And to your point, I'm a fan of the book. My issue is people who I'll call it use it as their Bible and believe that is the only answer. My issue with banking on yourself or infinite banking and the infinite banking concept using a whole life policy, there was a time where the whole life product was a great product.
Because it was what was available.
Today, there are other cash value life insurance products that are better. So using the same infinite banking thought process, but using a different vehicle to be able to achieve those goals. And again, because I'm very open-minded, I just want answers to solve the problem. I am not married or tied to whatever that answer might be. I'm a math guy. What does the math say? And the math says whole life policies are good. IULs are good, but a secure compound interest account in the form of a premium finance strategy like MPI is 2 to 3 times better. And that's just what the math says.
It's just math. Well, we have a book. It's called Everyone Ends Up Poor. It really walks through why so many people, even if they're putting in what their HR department and whoever else, the financial advisor said to put in, why people still end up poor. They run out of money and why this happens. It is time to start breaking some of these cycles. We're not eating meat and jello together anymore. So we're not going to be getting our financial advice from people who thought that that was a good idea. We have new systems. We have new opportunities that are available. And nobody in 2023 or beyond would think to themselves, like, you know what sounds good? Donnell, you want the Jello and the hot dogs together? And that's why we don't want the IRA and the 401k, and we don't want these traditional systems anymore, because we also know who's siphoning from them and who benefits. And it's time that we benefit first. So Everyone Ends Up Poor. The other second book is The Lost Science of Compound Interest. In addition to that, if you were like, what was this thing that he showed us? How does it work? I don't get it. I'll have to just tune in another time. You don't have to wait for that either. We have a very comprehensive and full deep dive into, it's a video series into the MPI plan. It's kind of walks through all of the facets, and it's broken up into many smaller chapters so that you can just like snack size portions that you can walk through. That's completely free. And all of that is on selfdirected.info. So you can get all of that there, but I'm going to show you exactly how to get it in just a moment. So I think we're ready to roll the credits on that. Yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay, well, thank you so much to everyone who tuned in. We appreciate your time. We know that time is the most valuable asset that we have, and you spent it here with us today. So we hope that we've seeded something valuable into you. If so, please share this out. Please like, please subscribe, and support us so that we can help you and help others too. It helps kind of share the love and tells YouTube that we're valuable and we have something valuable to share, so we can share it with more people. Well, anyway, you got any last words? Any last thoughts?
I'm good.
All right. Well, I'm Angelique.
And I'm Donnell.
And we
self-directed.
We need a cooler outro. All right, hold on, guys. I'm going to show you how to get it and just what it is. Hold on one second. And we'll see you Sunday. Hey, before you go, we want to remind you that becoming fully self-directed means gaining complete control over your wealth, time, and freedom. It's not just an idea. It's a framework, a mindset, and the power to make informed decisions to secure your future. Being here means you're taking those steps, and we want to thank you for allowing us to guide you. We believe that we grow farther and faster when we grow together. So tune in next time and tell a friend to tell a friend. We've helped thousands of people just like you start their journey to financial freedom. And if they can do it, you can too. And if you're ready to learn more, we got you. Get a head start by grabbing these 2 free books. But how do they get them, Donnell?
Head over to my website where you'll have access to a few things. A ton of free resources, case studies, and over 100 5-star reviews from people just like you. And in 15 minutes, we can explore what's possible for you. So don't wait.
Invest in what you want, when you want.
But first, let us help you
Get self-directed.